So I begin by saying that in order to know how to preserve your heritage, you must know what your heritage is. And because of Macaulay and the curriculum which Jawaharlal Nehru continued and all these secular people have continued it, we do not know our heritage. We have just broad ideas. Many of the things I am telling you today, we are today respecting in India because the Americans have found respect for it. Yoga used to be laughed at in the 1950s, at least amongst the educated, English educated. But then when the Jane Fonda and all took to yoga, we changed our mind. About 20 years ago, NASA made an astounding declaration. They said that in the most advanced area of computer science, namely artificial intelligence, we find that Sanskrit is the most computer compliant language, perfect for the computer, and henceforth learning of Sanskrit is compulsory for doing advanced work in artificial intelligence. Today it is being taught. Secretly, Americans are learning Sanskrit. And of course, then Sanskrit will become fashionable in India also. But the fact is that I want to tell you that here is a language invented how many centuries ago? But today it is being seen as the most modern language with a script, the Devanagari script, as the most phonetically accurate alphabets. And this we invented so long ago. So you will find in almost every dimension, India had shown to the world. I mean, I don't have to go to medicine to show that plastic surgery was known, surgery was invented in India. This whole new craze that has come in the Western world, which you see in Kerala, for Ayurveda, is a new thing. And what I'm afraid is that when people now talk disparagingly about Hinduism in India, someone said that the moment you utter the word, I think Agarwal said, the moment you utter the word Hindu, you are regarded as some kind of retrograde. But very soon that will change. Because recently, the Hollywood's best known actress, Julia Roberts, came to India about in 2007. And she went to an ashram, told the Swamiji there, that I have millions of dollars, I have won every Oscar award that's possible for a woman, lady actress, an actress to win, but I'm not happy. So please teach me how to be happy. So he asked her to stay for a minimum of 1 week, and she was so transformed at the end of 1 week that when she went back to Hollywood, she held a press conference with her son, with her 2 children and husband, and declared that she has finally found happiness and therefore she is converting to Hinduism, and today she is a practicing Hindu. I have no difficulty in accommodating other religions in India in this grand enterprise to preserve our heritage. First of all, look at the heritage of India, look at the heritage of Hindus. The Parsis came running from Iran, being persecuted. They went to many other countries, they came to India also. We received them, we built their fire temple for them, and they lived in a community totally in peace with the Hindus. When the British left India, they told the Parsis that, like Anglo-Indians, we will also give you some reservations in parliament and in education. So they said, no, we have no problem with Hindus, you go. We will be quite well with you. The Jews came to India after being persecuted everywhere. And we built their synagogues, which you can still see in Bombay and Cochin. And when Israel was founded, the first resolution after the founding of Israel passed by Parliament was a resolution saying, thank you India, you are the only country in the world where Jews were not persecuted. That's the tradition. Even Muslims who came, the Arab traders in Kerala, they wanted to settle down, we managed them, that's why they called Mopla in English and Mapile in Malayalam. And they settled here. The Syrian Christians came, they also settled, no problem. When India was 100% Hindu, no religious group, other religious group had any other problem. So how can you say Hindu cannot be communal? I don't understand. It's a contradiction in term. If you are a Hindu, you have to be secular because you accept that all religions lead to God. We don't say all religions are equal, by the way. Don't confuse that. I mean, we say that all religions lead to God. We will go by turnpike and you will go by the village road. So we have there's no other religion which says that all religions are equal, all religions lead to God. They say no, it's only our religion. Christianity will call you a pagan, bought by the devil, all kinds of things they'll say. And converting you would be considered as saving you. You may not want to be saved, but they are hell-bent on saving you because you're not a Christian. The same thing with Islam. You're a kafir. At worst, you will be a dhimmi, which means you do menial work. So, in that circumstance, what is the religion, what is the heritage you want to protect? A religion which is so broad, which recognizes you can also pursue religion in your way, we pursue it in our way. That's the Hindu tradition we want to protect. We need today a renaissance, not a revival, not a ossification of Hindu and then protect that as a heritage. We are not looking for an archaeological or a ancient monument to making the Hinduism into some kind of a frozen ideology. We certainly want to change certain things. One of the things we have to change in our Renaissance is this division on Varna basis of Hindus. Originally, when Varna was conceptualized by two rishis. One was Rishi Bhrigu and the other was Rishi Bhardwaj. They sat together and discussed how can you create a stable society. At that stage, Rishi Bhrigu suggested that in a society there are 4 dimensions of power. One is knowledge, so it's a source of power. The second is weapons, another source of power. Third is wealth, which is a source of power. And the fourth is land. These are 4 sources of power. And Bhrigu said that the best way to stabilize the society is make sure that this is not concentrated in one hand. So these 4 should be distributed such that no person will have access to more than one source of power. So those who had knowledge or chose to acquire knowledge, they would not have weapons, they would not have wealth, they would not have land. And that was elevated to the highest status, which was called the Brahmin or the Pandit. Today you have Brahmins who are executive director in Bata Shoe Company. It is not, the idea was discipline. We have made, there's nothing wrong, there's no law which forbids a person born in a Brahmin family from being a Brahmin, but he must practice that thing. So I said, let it be. This ossification that is taking place. You see, the Brahmin was the policy maker because he had knowledge. So the king could not make a decision whether to go to war or not to go to war. King had no right to dispense justice. So, therefore, the king had to bow before the Brahmin and get his concurrence. Europe was not like that. Europe was a monarchy in the proper sense of the word. We were not a monarchy in the proper sense of the word. And wealth was never the determinant of social status. In fact, it was fairly down in the social status. Only if you donated philanthropy, then only you became socially, you were raised socially. So this was the structure, and it was not with birth. And you can see that by looking at the past antecedents of the rishis. Veda Vyasa wrote the Mahabharata, great rishi. But his mother was a fisherwoman. She was not a Brahmin. Valmiki was born in a Dalit family. It's only now we are beginning to accept that. He became a Maharishi, he wrote the Ramayana. Kalidasa was moving around the forest cutting trees. And he was so stupid, he was sitting at the wrong end of the branch and cutting the tree. And he then transformed into a great poet and a Maharishi. Then you have Vishwamitra, the Rishi of Rishis. And his parents were Kshatriyas. So that itself is proof. Of course, it's Gita very clearly stated by Lord Krishna. It's only with gunas. Connected, varna is connected with gunas and not with your birth. Ravan was a Brahmin, by the way. Very few people know that. He was a Pandit. He was not a Lanka Pandit. He was actually born in the borders of Delhi, which is now called as Noida. And his wife was born, Mandotri was born in Meerut. But Ravan went to Mansarovar. He did tapas, and Shiva, as he is called, Bholanath, very easy to please, he gave him a var, which he used to conquer Sri Lanka, because Kuber had built it into the most developed part of this area, of the entire South Asia. And even today there is proof in Mansarovar area. In fact, I argued with the Chinese for 3 years, and finally they agreed to open Kailash Mansarovar, and I was the first one to go to Kailash and Mansarovar after 35 years. On the way, there is a big lake called Rakshasthal, sometimes Ravana Haranga. Rakshasthal is actually because Ravana was considered Rakshas, you see. But Ravana Haranga, I asked the local Tibetans, why is this called Ravana Haranga? They said Haranga in Tibetan means Sarovar, lake. Ravana, he said, is somebody who came from India. That's all he knew. So, I was a bit surprised when the British made Ravana into a Dravida king. And this whole Dravidian movement was started by the British, of which today Karunanidhi is the leader. And Karunanidhi for a long time took the stand that all Northerners are Aryans, we are Dravidians, and we Dravidians, our great lord is Ravan, and this man from North India, Ram, came and killed him. This is the kind of junk that was being taught, thanks to the British. But the truth is not totally different. I once had a discussion with Karunanidhi, and I said that do you know that Ravan was a Brahmin? He said, no, that's not correct. Then I brought out a Tamil Ramayana, which is called Komban Ramayana, and showed it to him. Finally got convinced. He stopped talking about Ravan and stopped doing Ravan Leela. He used to perform Ravan Leela. He had Ravan Leela and he had Ravan Leela. And of course, it was a very pornographic version that he gave. Because that's the kind of mentality he had. But he never gave up on Ram. He said Ram was a northerner. First he said he's a Brahmin. I said no, he is not a Brahmin, he's a Kshatriya. Anyway, he said northerner. And he's so much against Ram that he was insistent on putting a canal through and cutting through Ram Setu, which I had to object, which I had to go to the Supreme Court and get an order first to stay the project, and now of course the project is dead, and I'm just waiting for the court to declare it as a national monument so that all of us can go to Ram Setu. Visit now is easy. It's not easy today to visit it because you have to, because there are no out in the Rameshwaram, after Rameshwaram there is no proper road. But all that has to be done. You can see Ram Setu even today. And it is constructed more or less in the same way as it's described in Valmiki. So one day I was arguing in court, and the press headline was Swamy defends Ram Setu. So Karunanidhi got upset and he said, who is Swamy to call this Ram Setu? Ram built it? Was he an engineer? Which engineering college did he go to? I mean, just to debase Ram. Next day he fell ill. And he had to be admitted to hospital, to a serious illness. And the hospital's name was Ramchandra Medical Hospital. So I wrote him, it's lucky that at least Ram has got an MBBS. But see, these traditions have always been devalued. Even the word Dravidian is not a description of a community. This is all the British concoction. You go back to its lexicography, and you find that the first time ever the word Dravida was used was by Adi Shankara. Adi Shankara went to North India and he challenged Mandara Mishra to a debate. So this was called Shastras, where you have a debate. If you lose, you convert to my religion. So there was Buddhism, the Uttamamsa school, lots of things, but Hinduism had gone to a great decline, and Shankaracharya wanted to revive it. So he went, he passed through Tamil Nadu, he converted all the Jains and everybody back to Hinduism, Buddhist. So when he went to Bihar, he had to have a debate with Mandara Mishra. And Mandara Mishra asked him, who are you? And he said, I'm Dravida Shishu. So he asked, what do you mean by that? So he said, Shishu, of course everybody knew, means child. But Dravida is a sandhi of two words, Tra and Vid. Means where the three oceans meet. That means Arabian Sea, Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. So it's a regional term. And the British changed it into a race. Now you see, you find our modern science is telling us we Indians are all the same. Whatever variations you see in the Indians is all due to weather. It is not connected with race. Race is only one basis, DNA. And DNA studies now published in a lot of reputed journals in Houston, in Cambridge, the Journal of Genetics, in India, in Mysore, in many places the research is published. And it all shows only one thing, that all Indians have the same DNA from Kanyakumari to Kashmir. There is no variation on the DNA structure. That is, we are all from this area only. Earlier on we thought somebody came from Africa, no. All dismissed now. We are original to the area which is called the Indian subcontinent. And if you are a Brahmin and a scheduled caste, also your DNA is the same. If you are Muslim and Hindu, your DNA is the same. Anyone living in this subcontinent, his DNA is the same. And this I also tested it out once because there's a politician in Bombay called Raj Thakre. He had run a campaign that, you know, all these Biharis have come and take our Marathi jobs away. These UP taxiwalas are the most rotten ones of them. Let them go back to their own place, which is UP. So I told a friend of mine that, you know Raj Thakre well. Can you get me a sample of his hair? Because you can get DNA by hair also. So he said, yeah, I go to the same hairdresser that he goes. So I'll get you. So one day he brought me a bottle full of his hair. Then I gave 10 rupees to a UP taxi driver and said, you give me your sample of your hair. Let me cut a little of your hair. He thought I was crazy, but for 10 rupees he was ready to give me another. I sent both these hair samples to Hyderabad, Microbiological Research Institute, and there got it tested. And it turned out that Raj Thakre's DNA and the UP taxiwala DNA was the same. And I publicly announced it also. I said Raj Thakre has come from UP because his DNA is the same as the UP taxiwala. And I'm willing to challenge him, let him come. I brought a portable DNA testing equipment. I'm ready to test it right here in front of everybody. And since then, you don't hear much about Raj Thakre speaking. This division must be deleted from our memory in order to recognize our true heritage. I mean, those days people used to go walking, people used to receive them. If you are different people, do you think you'll be received well? So I think we have to therefore examine this question, because we have a great tradition of never conquering any country with bullets. We went to Southeast Asia. By ideas, we made them all as our culture. You can go to Indonesia, you can see that. China, you can see that. There are many things that we are now thinking is foreign, it is actually Indian. Take for instance this karate or jiu-jitsu. That is not Japanese. There was a monk he was a Mahayana Buddhism monk, which is practically Hinduism, as opposed to Hinayana. He was in Kanchipuram. He went to China. He went to and settled in a place called Shaolin. And there he found that the empress people were troubling. He converted a lot of people to Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism. But he found that the emperor was hostile, so he wanted to cut them and butcher them. And he was committed to non-violence. So in Shaolin, he invented this karate. It was called in Chinese wushu. When you write wushu in Chinese character and read it as a Japanese, it is karate. So that's how it became karate. And furthermore, he had called his Buddhism as Dhyana Yoga. And the Chinese couldn't pronounce Dhyan, so they put it as Chan. And Chan in Chinese character, if you read as a Japanese, it is Zen. So Zen Buddhism is actually Dhyana Buddhism, which is actually Dhyana Yoga. So I thought this is all, when I read it in some Indian book, I thought this is all, nationalist Indian, patriotic Indian must be, but I have it cross-checked. But I was surprised, in 1936, the president of Beijing University, Dr. Hush, was invited to Harvard. Harvard was celebrating its 300th year, 1936. 1636 was founded, 1936 celebrated. They invited scholars from all over the world. And they invited from China, and they told him that you speak on a topic of your liking. And he spoke. He wrote a paper which is published by Harvard, which is there in my book which I recently published called Hindutva at National Renaissance. Whose lecture topic was the Indianization of China, a case of peaceful cultural borrowing. And he describes, you see, that the Chinese swallowed everything that the Hindus came and gave. He said it is not even Buddhism, they think it's Buddhism, but Mahayana Buddhism is practically Hinduism. So he describes how the Chinese customs, attitudes, family relationship, father-son relationship, mother-daughter relationship, all are inspired by Hindus. Of course, he is not very happy because he was a Christian. So he was saying that we have to remove all these influences before China can stand up. Because China those days was down. It was 1936. So we have this heritage which we have to protect. How do we protect it? Well, I would say that first few things have to be clear. What is India? What do you mean by saying I am an Indian? I've asked most people, what do you mean when you say you're an Indian? They say, well, I'm a citizen of India. I said, what do you mean by citizen of India? He said, I have an Indian passport. That's not, that's a technicality. An Indian is an identity. An identity means that there is some idea about India for which you are willing to set aside all your personal aspirations for the greatest of that concept. The second thing is that you are conscious that the people living in this country are your near and dear compared to anybody else anywhere else. So that's what Indian identity means, and I have defined that identity as Hindu, and in order to include others who are not Hindus, I have broadened that term and called it Hindustan. Hindustan is the identity of India. Bharat is the concept of a republic, but Hindustan is our identity, which means that I am either a Hindu or I proudly accept that my ancestors are Hindus. If the Muslim accepts that his ancestors are Hindus, which is the truth, I told them, a number of Muslim scholars from Deoband that I am ready to have your DNA test done. If you want, I can call them just now to do it. They all said no. I asked, one day Farooq Abdullah told me, you know, I am a Gaud Saraswat Brahmin's descendant. So I said, why don't you say this publicly? He said, are you crazy? Mullah will kill me. Privately, Muslims accept this. Christians, more or less, will accept. So, we are Hindustani, or India is Hindustan, if we accept that we are Hindus or our ancestors are Hindus. Now, in America, there's a professor called at Harvard, he's dead now, Professor Samuel Huntington. He wrote the book on this clash of civilizations also, which became very famous. He wrote a book called Who Are We? And he, after a big book, and he comes to the conclusion that we are American means that we are white, Anglo-Saxon, Christian, English-speaking population. So in one of the seminars he was quizzed very severely, and they said, there are Mexicans here, there are Hindus here, there are Muslims here, what about all that? He said, that's all right, they are US citizens. But America is The identity of America is it's a white Anglo-Saxon, English-speaking Christian population. That's the identity. British Prime Minister Cameron was asked in the middle of December by the BBC last year, what is the identity of Britain now? He said it's a Christian country. The BBC said, but there are so many Hindus, Muslims, Jews, and maybe, but the identity of India, of Britain, is Christian. I don't see why we cannot say the identity of India is Hindustan. And if a Muslim openly acknowledges with pride that my ancestors are Hindus, which is a fact, which scientific evidence shows that it's a fact, all DNA studies on Hindus and Muslims show that they are the same DNA, then we can treat them as part of our family. If you really want genuine Hindu-Muslim unity, then the Muslims must accept this. What is the problem essentially with Islam? People ask me, are you against Islam? I said, no, I'm not against Islam. I like Islam because they're very clear-minded. I don't like Hinduism because they're all confused people.